Okay. Oh man, I immediately got super nervous. I got like a billion trillion views of myself right now, and it's kind of tripping me out. It's one, two, three. A billion trillion is three. Um, but anyway, guys, welcome. Thanks for watching. This is my first podcast that I'm gonna do. Let's just see what this turns into. For now, though, welcome to the pod. This is supposed to be a news source for some of you guys. I want to do it weekly if I can, maybe just monthly. You know what I mean? Just honestly, whenever I can put out one of these, hopefully they're not too hard to produce or anything like that. But before I get started, I just want to say uh, everything that I'm going to try and present today is fact. If I do present something that is my own opinion, I'm going to try and do my due diligence to separate what is fact from opinion. I'm really not going to try and give you guys too many of my own opinions. I really hope that this can just be a kind of non-biased, bipartisan, just, you know, news source that you can kind of rely on and look to for kind of some of that more untalked about news, because some of the more taboo topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about, they don't want to bring up. And a lot of the things that just are destroying Thanksgiving tables and stuff like that. So my hope that this podcast is that I can just give you guys just the straight facts, so that you guys can then create your own opinions about it, and that you guys can have the actual information that's out there, because I know that there's so much fake news. And I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and we were saying on how difficult it is to watch mainstream media, because when you're watching mainstream media, you have to have this filter, this lens, where you're dissecting what is and isn't real news. So that's really what I'm hoping this podcast can serve for you, is just, I want this podcast to be that filter, so you can just watch this as just one source and just say, okay, these are just some facts, then I just know about these things now. So here's some shit you should care about with Jared. Maybe that's what we name this. Oh man, that was nerve-wracking. Am I just gonna do this all in one go? I think that's how you have to do these pods. Um, I might edit that out. So first thing that I want to talk about is Donald Trump on the 2024 ballot. So will he be on the ballot or not? I think is the number one thing that you should be asking, because in Colorado, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump could not be on the ballot, citing that it is a part of the Fourth Amendment from the Civil War, that not allowing insurrectionists to run for president. So the Colorado Supreme Court found Donald Trump to be an insurrectionist based off of his actions and what he said surrounding the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And so pretty much in Colorado, if you are a Republican or Democrat voting in the primaries, now this does not mean that he's taken off the general election. This only means that he's been taken off the primary election, okay? So the primary election's coming up in March, and in early spring and stuff like that. He won't be able to be on those, right? So what they're hoping to do with this is, by blocking Trump from running on the ballot, they're just extreme anti-MAGA leftist, right? And so just as MAGA people are extreme rightists, there's the world goes in a pendulum, right? So if it's going to swing extreme right to the MAGA, you're going to have the extreme left, and it's going to swing back left, right? And so that's what we're seeing here in Colorado, is we see this pendulum swinging back left. And so ultimately, everyone's saying it's going to get struck down. Senators, congressmen, other judges, people from Colorado are saying, yeah, this isn't going to fly. And honestly, it's not. It's unconstitutional. President Trump, or the former President Trump, has not been, he's not been tried. He's not been found guilty for insurrection. So you can call him an insurrectionist all you want, but here in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. So he's still innocent according to the law. So this is going to go to the Supreme Court. His election campaign did appeal this to the Supreme Court. So we're going to see what's going to happen. We're probably going to get an early ruling on this, because Supreme Court rulings don't come out until around June, July. So we'll probably get an early ruling on this, because it's going to be marked as on the precedent. So we're probably going to see this early next year, what the Supreme Court says. But If you are an anti-Trumper, this is the worst thing for you. Let me tell you why. Now, here's the part where I'm going to go off into my opinion about the subject. I think that this looks good for Trump in the long run, right? Because you have extreme leftists, right? Just like I've said, Trump is an extreme rightist, right? But now you have extreme leftists who mainstream media can crucify. Essentially, they can crucify these Supreme Court judges, Supreme Court judges in the Colorado Supreme Court. They can crucify them and make them a martyr, and just kind of use their names and drag their names through the mud. Publicize Trump, say, man, the courts, the bureaucracy is trying to take over America. They don't want you to vote for who you want to vote for. You see what I mean? All this kind of plays into Trump's publicity, right? On top of this, it is unconstitutional for them to do this, right? So when it does go to the Supreme Court's going to make a one-size-fits-all ruling, like they have to, right? This one-size-fits-all ruling is going to say that Trump's going to be able to run in all 50 states. Right? Some states are going to have rules and they're going to have laws to say that Trump can't run in that state because he's either a felon or he's got criminal charges, he's facing criminal charges, he's been indicted, this and that, right? So if the Supreme Court goes off and makes this now this is my opinion once again, if the Supreme Court makes this one-size-fits-all ruling in favor of Trump because of what these Colorado judges do, that just makes his publicity just shoot to the sky. It just shows that the Supreme Court is with Donald Trump, right? And so this decision for the Colorado Supreme Court to block him on the ballot, I think ultimately will backfire, because when the Supreme Court has to strike this down because it is unconstitutional, because Trump has not been found guilty for insurrection, it's just going to do him good. It's just going to do his campaign good. MAGA Republicans, extreme right-wing Republicans are going to take this as a win. The mass media is just going to go, oh man, we struck down that, man, the bureaucracy, the bureaucracy's trying to take over the country. He's just going to run with it. So that's one thing that's going on in the news. Donald Trump on the ballots for 2024. I think abso-damn-lutely he will be. Just because these Colorado judges, they did it wrong to me. This wasn't the way. If you wanted to get him off the ballot, this wasn't the way to go about it. It's just going to give him more publicity in the end. So, a win for Trump. Let's talk a little bit more American politics before I move on to international. Let's cover Biden, the impeachment inquiries, and a little bit on Hunter too. So, Wednesday of last week, Hunter Biden was supposed to appear in front of the House Representatives, U.S. Congress, before they went on recess for the winter holiday. He did not appear. He still showed up on Capitol Hill, but he showed up on the Senate side of Capitol Hill, not appearing in the House, right, after he'd been subpoenaed, right? And so he spoke to press a little bit, kept with the same story that, his father didn't have any ties to him, and it wasn't helping him at all when his business dealings overseas and anything like that. His father didn't know at all, right? So, he's kept with the same story. But what we can expect when Congress gets back is that they are going to charge Hunter Biden with contempt of Congress, okay? Why this is important? Because they charge him with contempt of Congress. This is going to go off to the DOJ, which is his dad's DOJ. I mean, it's the White House's DOJ with your dad's name on it, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see if the Biden White House is going to go and get Hunter Biden, because contempt of Congress, that's contempt of court. You skip your court appearance. They can go and arrest you now and forcefully make you come and appear in court, right? He's been subpoenaed by the House of Representatives for from the whistleblowers, and they released all the laptops and stuff like that, and so they found over $200,000 going back to Joe Biden himself, and over $1 million going back to the Biden family through foreign accounts from payments from Russia and China, right? So Hunter Biden is in a lot of trouble, okay? Not only that, but he's facing felony tax evasion charges. He's facing felony gun charges, both of which he tried to get taken away in a plea deal, but the prosecutor didn't let the plea deal go through. So there's a lot, or the prosecutor didn't agree to the plea deal. He said that it wasn't fair, right? So Hunter Biden is in a lot a lot of trouble, okay? He's got a lot of things that the House of Representatives is trying to catch him for. And it was honestly in his best, now this is my opinion, it was in his best interest not to show up. So the jury, the House of Representatives basically, the jury is about to go on recess for the winter holiday. Let them go on recess and we'll pick it up afterwards. So it honestly was in his best interest to not show up, to make an appearance. You know what I mean? He still made an appearance publicly, but it really was in his best interest not to show up. Let them go on recess and, you know, just come back after the winter holiday. They might have a new state of mind. You know what I mean? Something might get released. You never know what might happen, right? So, but Hunter is in a lot of trouble, okay? Not only Hunter, but so is the president, Joe Biden. So last week also, or maybe 2 weeks ago, the House of Representatives opened up an official impeachment inquiry on the president of the United States, Joe Biden, right? We're going to see more of this and more, we're going to see some trials go down. We're going to see what's going to happen when Congress gets back after recess. Like I said, they're on recess for the winter holiday right now. But they did open up an official impeachment inquiry of the president. Right, some Republican lawmakers have already said that there's nothing there to be found. But, you know, it's like, that right there is a tougher situation to comment on because we're still at the very beginning of that situation. And I think that whatever ends up happening with Joe Biden in that impeachment inquiry will be as a result of what happens with Hunter Biden and the laptop conversations and his foreign business dealings and stuff like that, because those two are directly linked, because they're trying to charge Joe Biden for knowing and for colluding with Hunter during his foreign business dealings while he was the vice president. So we'll see what happens with the president when we get back from... Sorry, I'm not looking at my phone. I've got my notes for this pod on my phone. So we'll see what the president when we come back from the winter session. But yeah, I mean, we've got a formal impeachment inquiry open up on the president, and the president's son is being held for contempt of Congress when we come back. So we'll see what happens in January. It's going to be a wild ride going into January. Man, this is the part that I think is going to be hardest to talk about, just because it's such a sticky situation going on in the Middle East, Israel versus Hamas, or better said, the IDF versus Hamas. And so the perspective that I would like you to take away from this podcast before I even get going is, can you be both pro-Israel, so that's for the people of Israel, and pro-Gaza, pro-Palestine, right? So I think it's hard to be both pro-Israel and both pro-Palestine, but when you separate Palestine from Hamas, and you separate the IDF, that's the military in Israel, when you separate the IDF from the people of Israel, and from the Jewish people, and from the international Jewish nation, you know what I mean, for the Jewish people spread across the world, you really start to see it a little bit differently, right? Because the IDF's beliefs are not the beliefs of Jewish people in New York and Jewish people in San Francisco, and Hamas's beliefs are not the beliefs of people getting bombs dropped on them in Palestine, you know what I mean, and Palestinians here in America whose family members are over there facing mass genocide, right? So when you make that separation between the ideologies of Hamas and the IDF, the warring groups, the fighting groups, and the people which they represent, their ideologies aren't representative of their people. So just take that into account, and that's just my perspective on the whole conflict going on over there. And that's how I've come to be both pro-Israel and pro-Gaza, because when you look at it from this lens that we have, this third-person lens, it's a humanitarian crisis on both sides. And that's just it. That's the truth. That's the fact. When you look at the lives lost on both sides, from the attack that happened on October 7th, and then the retaliation that the IDF has had. Both of it's just humanitarian crisis, it's just humanitarian issues. It's just wrong, right? And so you can't dispute that. It's just been wrong on both sides. But that does not mean that you can persecute every person from Palestine, every Palestinian that you meet. That does not mean that you can persecute every Jewish person that you meet. So that's my opinion on that. Getting into the facts. So this week started off really rocky with Hamas rejecting the IDF's week-long truce. So the IDF wanted to proposed a week-long truce this week for a ceasefire, for hostage releases from Gaza into Israel, and Hamas said no. They flat out said no. They're not doing any more negotiations for hostage releases until the war is completely over. So it kind of puts a lot of pressure on Israel and the IDF, or the Israeli government and the IDF, to come to a complete end to all military operations there, because if they want to get those people back, Hamas has said that they need to end the war completely. So going off of that, the UN has been trying to strike a ceasefire for humanitarian aid in the region, but it's being held up by the U.S. because the U.S. wants to have more oversight over what that aid looks like. Why? It's because a lot of the aid would go to Palestine. It would also go to Israel as well. I mean, it would go to the whole region. But the U.S. being one of Israel's number one allies, I mean, they have extremes amount of invested interest on what that aid actually looks like. So that's probably why. But it's the U.S. that's holding that up right now at the UN level. And a little bit of what's going on the ground. 48 hours ago, the IDF blew up a tunnel network in Gaza City that was home to Hamas militants. So the IDF is working their way through Gaza City in northern Gaza right now, clearing that area out. They said that they're almost done with their military operations in northern Gaza, but that's just northern Gaza. They want to completely wipe Hamas off the map, right? There's still rockets still being fired from Hamas inside of Palestine, from inside of Palestine at Tel Aviv, months into the conflict. They're being fired by Hamas and by jihad Islamic groups, but in return, Israel's also firing off rockets back at them. And so it's just kind of showing that months later into the conflict, both sides are still firing shots at each other, right? So that's kind of what I was going into earlier, is that you can't pin it on the people of Palestine, you can't pin it on the people of Israel. Both military groups are firing shots at each other and making their people suffer. Little bit last thing going on in that region, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, are still firing on ships in the Red Sea, which the reason why you should care about that is because about 10% of all global trade goes through the Red Sea. And so these Iranian-backed Houthi rebels are trying to start a civil war there. I mean, Iran started a proxy war there, basically. And so it's just a matter of time before Americans get killed in the Red Sea. And so if that happens, then that's, what I mean, or French people, or, what I mean, and so it's just, the whole Middle East is all just one ticking time bomb. And so last number for you to know is that there's been over 100+ attacks on U.S. forces in Syria and across the Middle East region since around mid-October, since the October 7th attacks. So that's just like a really, really concerning number to hear. 100+ attacks on U.S. forces in Syria and across the Middle East. So we either need to get all those troops out of there completely, or come up with some type of resolution to the conflict in that area, because it's just the U.S. has so many problems to fix internally that it's just like, and we have a whole election that's coming up, and we're going to be fighting another proxy war in Yemen. It just doesn't make sense. Like Yemen, Syria, I'm not even bringing up Ukraine in this podcast because that would take a whole another 15 minutes, but Ukraine, Israel. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many proxy wars across the world that the U.S. is fighting in, and so when you imagine that, and so you imagine our defense budget is going just overseas, it's like, well, no wonder we're not fixing so many issues here in the States. So maybe that gives you a little bit of a look into my foreign policy. But whew, wow, got through all of that. That was a lot. So, my last thing of this podcast, I was going to talk about the Bitcoin ETF, but I didn't get my friend Nick on. Maybe we'll bring it up in the next pod. Maybe he'll hop on. He's real smart, real versed in the crypto and finance world, so he can talk about those issues and those topics a lot better than I can. So I don't want to scratch the surface on that. I just do my due diligence off of what he tells me. But my positive thing of the week, because I'm gonna try and have at least one positive thing of the week on the pod. Clash of Clans released its Town Hall 16. So this is a super hype update. It released a new hero pet. It released some new buildings, some new upgrades, new laboratory level. So for all those guys who were maxed out Town Hall 15, hop on right now. Get back on the game. Get that Town Hall 16 upgrade. I think it's a really cool update. I wanted to see where Clash of Clans is going with its realm of fantasy. Like, what's the next step for it? You know what I mean? Where does it add a new hero? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just real interested to see on where Clash of Clans can go, where it takes itself from here. My last thing is going to be my thing of the week. So this is going to be a section of the podcast every week or every month, however often I do this, where I talk about my thing of the week. My favorite thing is whether it's like a product or I really like these new vitamins that I've been trying or something like that. So my thing of this week is Phasmophobia. This game is just, I don't know if I can pull it up so you can see it on screen. Oh, you can. Phasmophobia. It's on Steam. It's like $15 maybe on G2A. It's super fun. It's a great game to play with your friends. It's 4-player. It's a ghost hunting game where you're dropped into a scenario and you get one of one of 30 ghosts, and you have to, based on the evidence and the EMF reader and fingerprints and stuff like that, figure out what type of ghost it is. And of course you can do harder evidence modes where sometimes there's not even any evidence and you have to just base it off of clues such as how fast the ghost is and stuff like that. So it's a super fun game, super interactive. The audio is super good in the game, and it's genuinely scary. So if you like horror games or anything like that, or you're just looking for something to play with your friends that's not too expensive, Phasmophobia is definitely my number one game right now. That is like a great party game with friends. Like, if me and my friends are going to hop on the Discord and play a quick game, it's definitely going to be Phasmophobia. It's going to be one of those games that's going to hop in the session. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through to right now, please hit the like button. Let me know what you thought about the pod. Please put your comments down below. Let me know your opinions on any of the topics that I covered today. Also, let me know if there's any topics that you want me to cover in the future. If you hated it, let me know that too. I'd really love to know just your opinions, what you thought about this. But I'm logging off, and once again, please don't take me too seriously. Peace, guys.